Odyssey is Christopher Nolan's adaptation of the ancient Greek epic with a star-studded cast featuring Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, and more. It's almost 3 hours long and the first movie ever to be shot entirely on IMAX. As is for every single Nolan film, there's a huge amount of hype and talking points going into it. But for this one in particular, there also seemed to be a lot of controversy. I got the earliest ticket I can to give you an early review and break down on some of the main points I want to highlight in this movie. I'll give my overall review with a score out of 10 towards the end. So if you want to skip right to that, it is timestamped. If you're considering where to see it, share this with your friends and family. And if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. It really helps. And do leave a comment, as I would love to hear what other people's thoughts on this movie are. Now, I know the Odyssey is taught in a lot of Western education systems. I've heard bits of the story, and I've basically watched every single interview on YouTube before going in, but never really spent a lot of time with the text itself. That's just to say, I'm coming into this movie with relatively fresh eyes, and quite excited to see what Nolan actually does with it. The overall plot of the Odyssey is not exactly a secret, but it's also only fair to say that there will be very minor spoilers going forward if you don't know that much about the story. The visuals are stunning. Saw the movie in IMAX, but not in 70mm because that's apparently just not very physically possible nowadays. All the visuals, the set designs, the effects, everything was incredibly immersive and stunning. And you know that they're using this extremely clunky IMAX camera to shoot the whole thing, and you know that Nolan insists on using practical effects. So I'm going into this with half a mind, almost like a bit of a kid trying to spot out the magic trick. But you're just left in awe still of wondering how on earth they did all of that. But yeah, the richness of the visuals, it's just so satisfying to watch. Should definitely go see it in cinemas. It doesn't have to be IMAX if that's something that's not particularly accessible to you, but obviously that is the way that the movie was intended to be enjoyed. One of the main things I looked out for as well were those intimate conversation scenes, which was highlighted as a major technical breakthrough for this movie, being able to shoot all of those on IMAX. They also talked about how they had to build these special mirror systems in order for them to shoot those scenes with the big camera in the way. I'm going to be honest, as an average movie fan, it didn't really make that much of a difference to me, but it also definitely doesn't take anything away from the performances. There was some controversy with the costume designs when they were first released with the posters. People felt like it was too clean or modern, and I do get where that concern was coming from, but I actually quite appreciate the designs in general. I think it worked very well given the context. One thing I would like to add, though, is I don't know why this has been a thing for a few Nolan movies now, where the audio mixing was just off. For the first 20 minutes of the movie, there were a few instances where I could barely hear what the people on screen were saying, but really also got better as the movie went along for some reason. So that wasn't a major problem for me, but it was definitely not a coincidence. It could also just be me getting old, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case. When you look at the cast as star-studded as this one, you also go in with expectations on how they would combine and bounce off each other on screen. And overall, as you'd expect, performances were great. Himesh Patel as Eurylochus, who is basically Odysseus' right-hand man, I think did actually a brilliant job despite not being the biggest name on the call sheet. Anne Hathaway's performances were very powerful, although she actually isn't in the movie as much as I expect. I also wanted to highlight Zendaya in particular. I've always quite liked Zendaya, the star and the celebrity, but I never really had particularly strong feelings for Zendaya, the actor. But in this movie, I actually felt like she was amazing. Again, she's not really in the movie that much, but her scenes are super impactful and powerful. They talk about in the promotional interviews how she basically gets dropped into these very impactful scenes without necessarily having the same emotional warm-up as the other actors might have been given the context, but I honestly think she did a brilliant job. Zendaya's co-star in the drama, Robert Pattinson, delivers another of the standout performances in this film. And I think it's incredible that he's quickly becoming one of my favorite actors of this generation. How he has redefined his acting career and become one of those top billings that puts butts into cinema seats, it's honestly quite heartwarming to see. I would say though, I wasn't a huge fan of Elliot Page and Travis Scott's characters. What Travis Scott's character was meant to be doing in the film, it just wasn't working for me. And his whole demeanor and vibe just felt very out of place. Same thing with Elliot Page. I didn't particularly buy into his character's dynamic with Odysseus, and I felt the overall performance just felt a little bit too much. I think it says a lot that this movie is almost 3 hours, but I felt like it could have went on even longer. Christopher Nolan took this classic plot and remade it in his style in a thoroughly entertaining way. And I'm pretty sure he did actually say that he wanted to make this movie a bit longer, but if the film was longer than 3 hours, then there would have been these technical difficulties with the IMAX technology they were using. As a result, I do think the start of the movie, pacing-wise, feels a little bit rushed, but as an aspiring writer, it's honestly inspiring to me to see how Nolan manages to take a story that almost everyone knows and still do things with it that no one expects. As you come to expect from a Nolan film, there is going to be fragmented and staggered storytelling. And I do have slight mixed feelings about it in this case. On one hand, I do think it makes it slightly overcomplicated. But on the other hand, I think it does a great job of grabbing and engaging the audience. It also means that he can spread out the more action-packed, massive set pieces with the more conversational character moments and still keep up the incredible intensity of this epic adventure. The ending of the film was done very well. There's this scene at the end when Odysseus finally reunites with Penelope, and they have this chat where it just made me go like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. I never thought that I could think about the story of the Odyssey and the Trojan Wars in that way. Nolan also does something incredibly clever with Zendaya's character Athena that I won't go too much into here, but it's another one of those things that makes you go like, that was such clever storytelling. Like, how do you manage to take such an old story and still add a spin to it? And the thing is, it makes a lot of sense as well for the character and her relationship with Odysseus. I would say that it makes some of her dialogue that happens before that point in the story not make the most sense in hindsight, but overall it was a great idea with great execution. Overall review of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. In an age of slop and fast food entertainment, it's a breath of fresh air to see one of the world's purest and most stubborn artists take a more than 2,000-year-old story and turn it into a 3-hour-long adventure that you just can't get enough of. The movie is just so neatly packed with mesmerizing visuals and genius storytelling that I think it almost serves as a beacon for lovers of all sorts of media out there, that there is actually still some hope for human creativity in the future. It's not without its flaws. I have some minor issues with the execution of some very practical elements and some of the character performances that I didn't love. But I rate it a very solid 8.5 out of 10. Not quite his best movie ever, but easily one of the best films of the year.
If you have made it this far, firstly, thank you so much for watching the video. It also probably means that you're at least okay with the content you're seeing here. So please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. And for the meantime, please check out this video for more of the similar good stuff.